The future of work is here, and it's powered by AI. In this video, Maven Analytics founder Chris Dutton is going to walk you through what the future of analytics really looks like and what that means for your career. You'll learn to think of AI not as a competitor, but as a powerful partner that you can use to build a long-lasting and resilient career and be ready for what comes next. Let's dive in. So let's jump into it. Chris, this is the one everybody always asks first when they're thinking about data careers. Is AI going to replace us, our jobs as data pros? What do you think?
All right. So if my answer were yes, this would be a really unproductive and short session. So
yep,
I think
I'll just hang up right now.
The answer is yes, and we'll see you guys later. No, I mean, the short answer is no. I don't think that AI is replacing the need for data jobs or data professionals or analysts. I do think it is fundamentally and in some ways pretty significantly changing the way that we work. And we'll dig into a whole bunch of that as we go through these questions. But this is actually a good place to just set the stage and kind of talk about the mindset shift that's happening right now. Because we live in some crazy times, right? Like, I think everyone would agree with that. Like, this is stressful. This is scary. Things are moving faster than they've ever moved before. We are creatures that crave stability and comfort and predictability, and generative AI is literally none of those things, right? So, like, if you're not feeling like a little bit of anxiety or uncertainty, like, you're either not being honest with yourself or you're superhuman or something. But, like, I want to be clear, like, those feelings are normal. And I think this question is really rooted in that anxiety we're hearing and feeling from a lot of people, ourselves included, right? Like, John and I don't have all the answers. I can't predict what 3 years out is going to look like, or even next year, just because things are evolving faster than anyone, even the experts, ever understood. So I just want to, like, give people some peace of mind that, like, if you're feeling that way, it's very, very normal. And the people who are posturing as, like, the ones who have it all figured out probably don't. So take it with a grain of salt. And on that note, I want to say that, like, this is a super polarizing topic. And I don't know about you guys, but, like, my social feeds, like my LinkedIn feed is just endless AI content. And what you have to remember is that, like, social media rewards hype and dramatic controversial takes. So you're going to get opinions that are unbelievably polarized, right? You're going to get opinions from the AI skeptics, and you're going to get opinions from the snake oil salesmen who are telling you that, like, data is dead, Excel is dead, SQL is dead, like, the whole world is changing under your feet. So try to keep that context in mind. Try to stay grounded. Try to develop your own kind of balanced opinion on what AI means and what it means for you. Because I think it's very easy to get caught up in that whirlwinds and those polarizing takes. So that's kind of where I wanted to lead, just with the mindset shift, which is that it's normal to feel that anxiety, but you have to remember that this is also an amazing time to be alive. And it's an amazing time to work in technology and to be part of this first generation that has access to these foreign superhuman tools that are unlike anything we've ever seen before. Presents an enormous opportunity for all of us, right? And even though you might feel like you're falling behind and everyone's, like, using AI like crazy and they're experts, the fact that you are thinking about this and that you're here listening to us talk about this today means that you are staying on top of the curve, right? And that as long as you have that mindset that, like, this is an opportunity, this is a gift, and this is, like, it's going to force you to kind of change your habits and get back into a learning mindset. But if you do, my God, the potential is incredible there. So I suppose back to the question at hand, will AI replace jobs? Like, I think the simplest thing to say is that as long as companies are producing data and as long as they are using that data to try to make better decisions and improve their business and drive revenue, data analysts will always be important and in demand. Okay. And I don't ever see that changing no matter how advanced AI gets. I think, like I mentioned, what's changing is the way that we work. Talk about some specific differences as we get some of the additional questions, but like at the 10,000 foot view, the way I like to think about it is that it's kind of forcing you to shift from being a technician, right? Someone who writes code and completes tasks, to being a strategist, right? Someone who solves problems and is proactive and who's outcome oriented. And what that means is that now there's a bigger emphasis on these non-technical skills, right? These things like critical thinking, communication, storytelling, empathy, creativity. These have always been important for analysts, but I think what AI is doing is shining a much brighter light on those skills and making them relatively much more important than they have been compared to those traditional technical skills. John, what would you add there?
Yeah, really well said. I had some stuff I want to add, but I just saw some comments here that I love and I want to jump in on real quick. So Christy said a little bit worried about AI, but also see the opportunity in focusing on the human skills that AI can't replace. Like, I love that. I think that is the absolute right mentality. I think well, Chris said, it's a very kind of a scary time to be working. It's also kind of a really fun time. There's some amazing applications you can do. So I love the balanced approach of being aware, but also like maybe excited about leveraging this as a superpower with some other skills. Like, very, very cool approach. And then a really interesting perspective from Agata said, I'm more worried that people who are responsible for corporate strategy will buy into the AI hype and will make uneducated decisions on analytical roles. And then when true analytical skills will still be in need. I love that. That's a totally legitimate fear. And from my perspective, the market corrects itself. So if you have a CEO that's doing that and says, oh, we don't need data people anymore, we don't need people that understand data, AI will do this for me, that person will get fired pretty fast, because when the rubber meets the road, they're going to be making some bad decisions because maybe they had bad data. Maybe they didn't really know the right questions to ask, how the data was structured. So like, that certainly could happen. I don't think the most thoughtful leaders are going to do that. And the ones that are, they're going to be out quick, right? Chris and we operate a business. We see firsthand, like, there's no magic AI solution to your data problems right now. But if you do have those really good fundamentals, AI can be an enhancer, but it is useless without the fundamentals. So I think but all really good comments. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, really fun time. I think there's, like Chris said, this is going to lead to companies having more and more and more data. They are always going to need somebody to use it. Maybe I'll argue the counterpoint quickly, just so you guys can hear what the steel man of the other side is like, a lot of people work in data right now. It's a very expensive business function. There are some really smart people in technology, in venture capital, throwing an enormous amount of money at trying to create the analyst in a bottle, right? Like, trying to solve the problem of, oh, we can sell you this software so you won't need an analyst, right? If they could solve that problem, tremendous value would be created by the company that creates that solution. So that's probably the argument. But just because I live at the place where we actually operate businesses, we use data. Chris and I have about 20 years of experience. Like, I see under the hood, and there's so many little things, like making sure the data is all connected, making sure you have the right data, making sure there aren't problems with it, that a process didn't start working. And if you can't think critically about that AI, you're you're going to very quickly go off the rails. So, I think it's not a solvable problem, even though there's an incredible economic opportunity to solve it. I personally don't think you can remove the person. Otherwise, I'd probably abandon Maven and go try to build that solution myself. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm open to seeing who's working on it too. But I just don't think, it does not seem like that's where we're headed at all. So that's my approach.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that, like, analytics is a very human field. You know, a lot of people think on the surface of analytics as a very technical thing, like being an analyst means being a coder, like, and maybe that was true in the past. But when you think about like what a great analyst looks like today, even before AI, like, it wasn't just the ability to be an exceptional coder or to be a master of the technical skills. It was everything else, all of those softer, less tangible human skills that, like, it's being able to like take an insight and turn it into a narrative that will compel the stakeholder to take action, because you have this deep business acumen. You understand context at a level that an AI model can't. You've worked in this job for a couple of years. You know the office politics. You know that Bob hates pie charts, right? And will immediately shut down if he sees one. Like, it's that kind of like nuance and emotional intelligence that like is equally important, if not more, than the technical side of things, because you could conduct a very complex, perfectly accurate analysis, but if you can't take that finding and translate it into an actionable insight and a recommendation that drives a decision for the business, and if you can't help navigate that decision-making process and make a strong case and communicate it clearly and effectively, then you're dropping the ball at the 1 yard line, and all that work was useless. And that's what gives me confidence that analysts are always going to be important, as long as they are able to deliver on that part of the job, right? Like, I would not be surprised if AI replaced all of the coding, right? Or all of like the technical data modeling work in the next few years, but that still leaves a really important part of the job that you need to be successful in this field.
Yeah, totally. And then one more comment I want to, there's a comment here from Daniel. It says, FYI, I've chosen to leverage AI versus hiring or outsourcing. It's not a one-to-one swap, but AI is getting good enough to lean on. I don't know, Daniel, but from a few thoughtful comments, like, it seems like I would classify Daniel as somebody who has the fundamentals and is using AI as another tool in his tool belt as a leg up. Right. And so here you can think about two different people right now, right? Somebody, Daniel, who has the fundamentals and is using AI as leverage. And then another person who in the past might have gotten hired for like entry level busy work, but now isn't getting hired. And so you have Daniel doing more, and then somebody kind of doing not getting hired for that role. Right. So it's really interesting to think about those two things. My advice would be to be Daniel. Right? Like, build the foundational skills and learn how to get the leverage of AI, because like what he's saying is, in the past, an employer would have kind of expected him to hire another person to get some leverage. Now he doesn't need that, right? Like, so from an employer perspective, he can cover more ground. And so just, yeah, be Daniel. Don't be the person who doesn't learn this stuff and doesn't get hired. But yeah, Chris, you want to go on to the next question here, and then we'll
let's rock.
Try to save some time for the lesson. So how would you say, like, right now already AI is changing the way that people work with data?
So high level, I think, like we talked about, it's reducing the value of technical skills and it's increasing the value of strategic thinking. It used to be, even 5-10 years ago, like when I was first landing my job as a data analyst, side by side with John. For those who don't realize, we worked together in the past in our earlier lives. I got that job mostly because I loved Excel, and I was like great at Excel, and I was proud of those skills, and I could build anything in Excel. And that was like really what I hung my hat on. And that technical ability and proficiency is a big reason why I got the job. I don't think that's enough anymore, because now AI has already surpassed the ability level of the top experts in pretty much any technical or coding domain. It's amazing. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. And what that means is that now it's not about the complexity of your code. It's about the quality of your thinking. Like that's what we're talking about when we talk about strategic thinking and problem solving. And again, I think this is ultimately good news, right? Because it's now we're democratizing a lot of these technical skills to the point where anyone can learn how to think like an analyst and leverage really powerful tools and techniques with the support from AI. And what it's doing is it's moving these data jobs and these analytics roles up the value chain, right? Like we talked about, it's not just about writing code and producing reports anymore. It's about really shifting the focus and the emphasis on delivering meaningful impact for the business. And again, this has always been the goal. Like we've always preached that like that needs to be your definition of success as an analyst, because if it's not, then you're just kind of like a report monkey, or you're going through the motions and your work's not actually having an impact. And then what the heck are you doing, right? It's just that AI is now, I think, accelerating that focus, and it's raising the bar by automating a lot of that lower value work that many analysts have traditionally spent much of their time doing. So getting into like, I think some more specifics, like the things that we are already seeing being outsourced by AI are things that are like repeatable, redundant, monotonous, that have like very clear definitions of success. So like basic coding tasks, bug checking, documentation, simple exploratory analysis or data profiling, data cleaning, those types of tasks, like not really like your differentiator as a human anymore, right? Like these are the ones that AI can really shine at and save huge amounts of time. Not that they can completely automate it, and not that there doesn't need to be a human in the loop when you're using AI for something like quality assurance or exploratory analysis, because it does still hallucinate, right? And it will hallucinate confidently. And you need to be the expert who can validate and troubleshoot and make sure that you're owning, the output and then the accuracy of that output. So those are the things that we're starting to see very quickly and already get outsourced to a large extent by AI. I think the skills that are becoming more important, again, are those human skills that we talked about: problem solving, business acumen, emotional intelligence, communication, but also like a lot of like the broader foundational data skills are never going to go away. Like your ability to understand basic statistical principles, for instance, or experimental design, or data modeling best practices, governance, systems architecture. Like AI is not really going to help you at that level, right? It might guide you, but you really need that understanding. You might not need to know how to write every formula, in Python or SQL off the top of your head anymore, but knowing this is, the optimal data model or way to structure this to solve this particular task, that type of skill, I think is more important than ever in the age of AI.
Yeah. I love that you said data structures and data modeling because like, I think sometimes people would end the the critique with like the first part you said, where it's the soft skills. I do think those foundational, high level, how does data work? How do we store data? What is a relational database like? What are good practices for QAing the quality of data? You know, how do we join different data sets together? What are the most likely things that might go wrong? You know, some things like that I would call those kind of technical skills. And I think those are super important still today. And if you have those, there's some really cool things where if you understand those foundational concepts, you don't have to know Python, but you could get a job done with Python, you know, because you can talk about it. You could, if you understand the basic logic enough, you could troubleshoot it. Like, I'm not a Python guy. I'm mostly SQL and Excel is my stack. And I had to do a Python job the other day, and I knew Python was just going to be a much better way to approach this thing. And I said, you know, I haven't written Python code much in like 8 or 10 years. And went in, the AI gave me code that almost worked. I went through and I QA'd it a little bit. It was for a one-off thing. It wasn't going to have to like go into production code. It was just for me to be able to get the data, and I could visually check the data. At first it didn't run, so I had to tweak it a little bit. Then it did run. I looked at the data and I said, this is not right. Like there's rows that got repeated and stuff like that. So because I have the foundational understanding of like, why did those rows get duplicated? Then I was able to go in and play with the code. But the whole exercise took me like an hour, and I'm not even a Python guy, you know, but I have the core foundational data skills and understand logic. So
that's such a good, like, clear real world example too, because you said it got it almost right. And I feel like that is like 90% of my own instances of using AI. It's like, once in a while it'll one shot it, right? If you're really great with your prompt and you give it all the context and it's a simple case, but most of the time I would argue it almost nails it.
Yeah.
But like getting it, that last like bit across the finish line is actually what, like, where your technical skills and your foundation comes in, because that getting it to 100% accuracy would be almost impossible to someone who doesn't have your background, right? Who's looking at Python code or SQL code and has no clue what those functions are actually doing, and who doesn't understand the actual like architecture of data behind the scenes. So,
and it's dangerous. Like if you got it to the point where it produced an output, but you don't have the foundational skills to ask and answer the question, is that output correct? QAing your work, that is dangerous, right? And that's, to me, that at this point is the biggest where the rubber meets the road point, why I think data skills and human skills, I do believe, are always going to be needed, because there's just so many reasons, the quality of the data, how the data is connected, a process stops working. There's so many things that can go wrong. And unless the data is perfect and the question's very easy, you need to be able to answer those last questions. Is it correct? How much can I trust what I'm seeing here? And
not only that, but like going back to my earlier point about like these models hallucinate, they're getting better. The hallucination rates are dropping, but like when they are wrong, they are confidently wrong. And it's this weird psychological thing that's happening where you just start to trust these models because the output you're getting sounds so damn confident. And you're like, oh, like it just spat out this code. It looks legit. Like, all right, copy paste and I'm good to go. And like, this is something we kind of cover in our prompt engineering course, but there are ways that you can prevent, or at least limit the probability that happens by setting very clear guardrails inside of your prompt, and also changing, reconfiguring the settings to basically force the model to fact check itself, to rate the confidence in its response, because you'll never see an AI model or a tool like ChatGPT come back and be like, you know what, like based on the context I have, I think this is probably what you're looking for, but like,
Yeah.
It's usually like, great question. That was a brilliant assessment. This is exactly what you need, and people fall for that. And oftentimes it's not exactly what you need, or it's close, but not quite there. So, yeah, go check out the prompt engineering course. It will help you avoid that type of like false confidence. But it's a great point, which is that like, if precision is important or if stakes are high, like those technical skills are even more important than ever.
Yeah, it's also, and a lot of people resonating with that, those concepts here in the comments, which is awesome. And if you guys want another example just of like what the actual workflow looks like, our most recent data drill that we put up on our YouTube channel, Maven Analytics YouTube channel, I used ChatGPT for a SQL solution. It was funny. A lot of folks in the comments on the YouTube video said, hey, that guy's cheating. He used AI. By the way, there were 4 people. I lost the competition. I did it the slowest of anybody. So like, okay, if you think that's cheating, whatever. But my response is I wasn't cheating. Like, you saw a real analyst's workflow. I thought about it. I said, hey, I think there's these case statements in the SQL that are fairly complicated and would take me a while to write. I tried to prompt it. Maybe I could have written it a little bit faster or something, but it did, with a good prompt, it did one-shot the solution. But I also did need to describe the data, and I did need to QA it afterwards, visually make sure everything looked right. So I think that's a good example if you want to see a real AI workflow of thinking about the data structure, communicating it to an AI, seeing the code, QAing the code, and QAing the output. That was an example where it kind of disproves my main point that it sometimes gets stuff wrong, because it actually did a great job on the query, but I gave it a long, thorough prompt and data description. So
awesome. John, there's a question from Darren here that's
yeah.
perfect segue into Q3, which is with AI taking over the technical skills, what are your thoughts on the importance of learning these skills like Excel, SQL, Python, etc.? I think they're still important to learn to use AI efficiently and audit its outcomes for accuracy. So question 3, are traditional data tools still worth learning? John, do you want to take the first response?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I'll go into the exact example I was just talking about. Basically, because I know SQL quite well and have the foundational skills, I can work with the AI, prompt it correctly, and understand if it's correct. But so like, I love extreme examples to prove a point. Like, if my mom all of a sudden was going to try to do this thing, she's never written a lick of code of anything in her life, she doesn't really know about relational databases, she could not use AI to solve this problem, right? That's kind of like the most extreme example. Chris has done some SQL, not as much as me, not recently, but I bet Chris could get that problem done with SQL with an AI because he understands the data structures. He understands how to QA the work the same way that I could solve a problem with Python. So I think like I would recommend having like we said, the foundational skills, understand data structures, understand data hygiene, data governance, understand how to QA data, but also like actually get into the technical skills of like at least the basics. What can SQL do for you? What can Excel and Power Query do for you? And try to do it a little bit without AI yourself. I think, if I'm trying to build the perfect skill set for myself or an employee or my kids, I want them to do both. Like, I want them to be mentally strong without the AI, and I want them to be able to know how to use the AI in smart ways. I think missing either side of it is a folly, and you'd get yourself in trouble, and you'd be less efficient than you could be. So I think it's as important as ever. And you can, like Daniel was talking about, you can get that leverage, but you can't just be an analyst without those core skills. That's my take on it, Chris. I don't know if you have a different perspective.
Very similar perspective, right? I think the technical skills still matter. When you think about it, data is literally the language of AI, right?
Yeah.
So your ability to speak that language and your understanding of data literacy is critical if you want to leverage AI to its full potential, like period, full stop.
Yeah.
I think learning those tools and having a reasonably deep understanding of tools like SQL or even like Power BI or Tableau, if you're leveraging them with AI as your Copilot, is really important, for the reasons Darren mentioned. Like, you need to be able to validate the output. You are responsible for the quality and the accuracy of what you get back from an AI model. And if you want to wing it and trust blindly in the output, you better be ready to take accountability if it was wrong, right? Or if it led to a bad decision. And there's a lot riding on that, again, especially for cases where the stakes are high or where precision is critical, which is the case with a lot of, business intelligence work where you're making impactful decisions. There's money at stake here. So being able to validate, but also like that skill set is going to help you provide models with better, clearer context. It's going to help you understand like what questions to ask and how to ask them clearly. And then it also, just the ability to like manipulate and manage data using these tools can help you prep and package data in a format that AI needs to make it useful. It's going to help you like identify potential bias and QA issues before they become a problem. These are all really, really, really critical things. And then going back to John's example with his mom, like there's an analogy that I like to draw, which is if you're a terrible driver and you sit down in the cockpit of an F1 race car, like this is an accident waiting to happen, right? The race car doesn't make you a great driver. But if you are a great driver and you've gone through the training, you have those foundational driving skills, you've just been given superpowers. And that's how I like to think about it, right? Like it's not going to turn people with no analytical thinking capability into great analysts, but it's going to turn good analysts into exceptional analysts if they can harness the power of these tools. And that's why I think we talk about this concept of like AI literacy and data literacy really going hand in hand and working together to really unlock the power of this technology.
Yeah.
So I guess like last thing to say, like, are these tools worth learning? Like if we zoom out and think about what the world looks like in 5 years, in 10 years, we're seeing some interesting developments in this concept of like entirely natural language driven tools or AI powered tools that can produce analyses and visuals and dashboards, things like Plotly Studio, which is a new tool that rolled out this year that feels like it's starting to do it better than most of the other competitors in the past. Those might become more mainstream. We might start to see English being like the most popular programming language, in that like our own words is what actually is producing the output versus typing code or using kind of GUIs or interfaces. But again, like I think as long as hallucinations are still happening, as long as stakes are high, and as long as you need a human in the loop, you still can't get around the fact that technical skills still matter.
Yeah, awesome. And again, I think we can use another great comment here from Natasha saying, so what you're saying is it enough to build skills to some extent, and that could be good enough for a full analysis of data, since AI in the future could do a lot of what we need and you just need to validate it. Could that be good enough? I would say kind of. And that's a good transition into what are the skills that will matter most in the next 3 to 5 years. But I would kind of tweak your phrasing of that a little bit. I would say, I really want you to understand data structures, what you would be trying to do with the data if you didn't have AI, how to communicate that to the AI, and then how to be really, really confident and understand the difference between when the AI gets it right and when the AI gets it wrong. And I think if you could do those things, you know, and there's a lot of nuance into each of those things. But if you could do those things, I think you could be really, really solid. And yeah, Chris, what was it Visual Studio with Python?
Plotly Studio.
Or Plotly Studio, yeah.
Yeah, it's a new one.
Yeah, I haven't actually played with that myself. I played with, there was a large venture-backed company that does this audio prompting of dashboards a while back. It was kind of a cool party trick, but also I found pretty mixed results. So I'm curious. I'll play with Plotly Studio too. I'm overdue for that. So yeah, Chris, next 3 to 5 years, if somebody had to make a short prioritized list where to focus, what skills are going to matter the most?
Yeah, so we talk about this concept of like the AI ready professional in our AI Essentials course, which is the first course in our Gen AI path. So don't feel like you have to like frantically write down notes, but we listed 6 things that I think are really, really important if you want to be an AI ready professional in the next 3 to 5 years, and shorter term than that, like starting today. One is exceptional problem solving skills. Like we talked about, the ability to frame a problem, to think strategically, to know what problems are worth solving in the first place. Mission critical, right? First one. Deep business acumen and intuition, understanding the space that you're operating in, because AI is a very generalized tool. So it's not going to have that same depth of understanding of the role that you're playing in the business and the company that you're working for and the problems that you're trying to solve. So that business acumen is key. I put high emotional intelligence on here. I think EQ is like insanely important for this type of role. And it goes back to the examples I shared around like knowing the best way to, you know, to compel someone to ask, because you understand how they're being incentivized and how they react to certain language or behavior. Like, it sounds like kind of fuzzy, soft stuff, but like it can make the difference between a recommendation landing and completely falling flat. So I think that emotional intelligence and relationship building is something that AI can't touch. It has no idea how to replicate those types of skills. So I think that's really important. Communication and storytelling. This is something we go pretty deep in a number of our courses for the same reasons I just mentioned. Super important. Creative and innovative mindset. I think creativity is a uniquely human skill that you know, you combine your creativity with the speed of execution with AI, and you're pretty much unstoppable. And then finally, it's that strong combination of data and AI literacy paired together, and not over-indexing too much on one or the other. That's how I would summarize what I think is going to matter the most and what it means to be an AI-ready professional.
Yeah, you nailed it, Chris. Right now, where can folks start integrating AI today? Like, where is it ready?
Yeah, so first things first, the first thing you have to do is just get into this habit of asking or thinking AI first and asking, how can AI help me here, before you start doing it yourself. And this is like a weird kind of pattern interruption, because you're so used to like, oh, I got to clean this data. Oh, I got to join these tables. And you just start doing it. Force yourself to pause and say, can AI help me here? Not necessarily can it do the whole thing, but can it help me here? And then when you do that, the answer might be no in some cases, but in a few places, you're going to find these use cases where it's low stakes, where you don't have to be like perfectly precise, where you can provide clear context and guardrails and define what success looks like. So maybe not like analyzing your company's financial data, but maybe using it to like generate some code or a formula that you're unsure about, or debug a SQL query or optimize a SQL query that you wrote, or brainstorm test or A/B experiment ideas, like that kind of stuff. Like a lot of opportunity to start integrating AI, even just like as a code buddy, right? Or as a partner. You're not trying to get it to do everything. You're not setting the expectation crazy high, but you're just like starting to weave it into your process. And then you'll start to see where it's strong, where it's weak, where you're saving time, where you're seeing an impact. And then you can lean a little bit more into those types of use cases. And then there's some like really fun use cases too that we talk about it in our Gen AI Essentials path. We go through a whole like use case section, which is very hands-on and practical. And we'll also talk about some really fun use cases in the live sessions around career prep too. But like AI is an amazing tool for things like being a debate partner or like a sparring partner. If you're prepping for a big presentation and you want to anticipate common objections or role play, like what if I get asked this question or that, like awesome tool for that kind of stuff. It's great at generating synthetic data for practice. If you want like super specific things like, hey, I need to practice this specific function with industry data that, checks these 10 boxes, great tool for that kind of stuff. And then again, for career prep, things like portfolio feedback, simulated interview prep, like really like the options are endless, but those are a few examples of places I've actually used it. And John, do you want to talk about some of those GPTs we've built around?
Yeah, basically we took our best practices from our instructor team. That's, it's practitioners like Chris and I who have been in data in the trenches for, 20 years. Some folks might be 10 years, but we've done a lot. We've, I've personally hired and managed dozens of people, and I've participated in the interview process for thousands of people. So we took all these career concepts like resumes, making your LinkedIn profile awesome and stand out to employers, building a portfolio, and interview prep. And we built all these custom GPTs, and we just published them in the GPT store. So if you go to ChatGPT and you search Maven Analytics, you'll see these 4 GPTs. It's kind of cool. You can pop a resume in there and it'll give you feedback specifically on what your resume is doing well, what you could improve it. It scores different things. But it's not just kind of like generic AI slop. This is the back end of this program that we built runs through some really, really detailed best practices that we want you to follow. And it just it's almost like if you had Chris or me in your pocket all the time, and you could just be like, hey, Chris, what's wrong with this resume? And he could fix it for you, right? So I think it's pretty cool. It's free for anybody who wants help with that stuff. We put it up there. I did it just because I thought it would be useful and it would be fun to help people out, and it was a fun project, and they're up there. We've tested them out a lot. They work pretty well. So I hope you guys will enjoy that stuff. This is probably just as important as the first question: is AI going to take our jobs? How does an individual who's learning about data right now and is excited about it, maybe they're trying to break in, maybe they're already in and they're worried about how things are changing, how does that individual future-proof their skills so that not just today they can have a job, but the next 5, 10, 20 years, they can still be relevant and useful in data? What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, so I'll give my answer, and then I want to hear your take on this one too, John. So I think short term, it's the mindset shift, right? It's getting into this always learning mindset. You've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and really just accept the fact that like your skill set needs to evolve, right? Shelf life on skills is shorter than it's ever been. And just getting into that always learning mindset is really step one, in my opinion. And then, like we just talked about, start finding some of those easy ways to integrate AI into different parts of your workflow. That's going to be a great way to just build some familiarity with these tools, get comfortable using them, again, start seeing where they're strong and where they're weak. Shameless plug, go through our generative AI essentials learning path. That is what that path is designed for, is for people who are just getting started with these tools to understand like how to navigate the common terminology, like what is a GPT? What's an LLM? What is deep learning? How does that fall under this broader sphere of AI? And then how do I prompt these tools most effectively to get the responses I need? Like that's short-term stuff. Medium term, I'd say focus on showcasing your ability to drive impact first and foremost, versus just flexing your technical skills like you might have done in the past. I think that's what hiring managers are going to start looking for, is instead of just like, you know, the shiny polished dashboard in your portfolio, a little bit deeper depth into like how you attacked the problem, how you thought strategically about it, what impact you generated as a result. Like, I think that's a very real, tangible change to how to think about building your portfolio and showcasing your skills, especially if you're trying to break into a new career in data. And then as far as like upskilling and reskilling, I would say focus on any weak spots around those human skills, right? Communication, problem solving, strategic thinking, and so on. Our critical thinking course, that is our latest course release, is a really great place to start. I saw a few people asking for resources around those types of skills. It's a very unique course. I haven't seen any course quite like this one, but it really forces you to think about how to hone and sharpen your problem solving skills and how to avoid common biases and logical fallacies that if you fall victim to, AI is only going to amplify back to you. So that's a really fun, unique course. And it shows a lot of examples of like, if you approach it the wrong way, this is how AI is going to kind of amplify the problem instead of helping you solve the problem. And it really goes all the way back to like these classical critical thinking frameworks like Socrates and Aristotle, and very unique and fun course. And then I guess back to my response, sorry for the rant. Longer term, I think like the ultimate end goal is coming back to this idea of like technician versus strategist. Like, try to do everything you can to position yourself as a decision partner and as a trusted advisor to the business, not just like the guy or girl who's going to write code and accomplish tasks, right? And that takes time. That's why that's, I think, the longest term thing. But ultimately, I think that's really where everyone should be aspiring to go.
Yeah, it's awesome. I wouldn't say much different. The only thing I'll just add is my quick summary is that I think this is just another tool, and the framework that I'm using as a hiring manager is not actually changing much at all. Like, I'm still asking the same basic questions. Can this person solve the business problems that we need them to solve? My specific flavor of business problems. So that might be marketing analytics, that might be website analytics, the things that I focus on. Can they do that using data, including using AI tools, most likely? And then the other piece is, you know, do they just seem like they understand the business? And do I think they would be a fun person to, you know, let into my life for 40 hours a week? Because that's an important thing, right? And like, those are the big questions. I don't think AI changes either of those questions much at all. It's just another tool, right? Like when Power BI came around, it was another tool that was better at certain things than, Chris, what you and I used to just use Excel for building dashboards. And then it got better at some of the stuff. So awesome, phenomenal. We've got a little bit of time left. We probably can't hit all the questions, but I'd love to hit some of the most popular ones. So Bob, AI will reduce the number of data analysts an organization needs, but more organizations will want and be able to afford analytics. Do you feel analytics demand will be more for internal hire or outsourced consulting? And how should we change our learning if it's outsourced consulting like PwC and E&Y? Super interesting. Any thoughts on that one, Chris?
Oh, this is a tough question, Bob. I guess just some initial thoughts that come to mind. Like the short answer is like, I don't know. I can't predict the future. I feel like I don't know if I would anticipate a trend towards more outsourced consulting for analytics expertise, because that in many ways tends to be more expensive in some ways than in-house. Okay. And when you have an in-house resource or analyst, I think that it makes it much easier for that person to build that business acumen and that understanding of the team and the role in a way that like an external hire or consultant might not be able to do. And just going back to how important that context is, especially as you start leveraging AI as a tool in your toolkit. For that reason, I would be surprised if there was like a wholesale shift to outsourcing analytics work.
Yeah, same. I think the domain experience that you can develop and the expertise of a specific business, that business's problems, that business's data sets, the people that actually pull the levers in the business, I think it's so valuable. And I've been on both sides. I've done a consulting job where I was an analyst and kind of, you know, fragmented among anywhere from like 2 to 6 businesses at the same time, billed out for hire by a consultancy. And then I've been in-house, and personally, I found it to be much more fun. And I found to myself to be way more effective when I'm fully in-house, right? When they're basically just like, hey, the door's open. Here's all the data, figure out how to make us money. It just, you can really, really sink your teeth into those problems where like sometimes on the consulting side, it tends to be a little more siloed and a little more surface level, just from kind of the nature of the relationship and how they're all bouncing around. We'll see though. There might be certain areas where consulting does become really common, but let's see. So this is a good one from Andrew. Since AI is reshaping data analytics world, will we need a shift in the way data analytics is taught and learned? It's a great question for our head of product and instruction here.
Yeah, it is already changing the trajectory and our strategy for how we build out our course production roadmap for the next year and beyond. And I think the biggest shift is that, you know, we're putting a little bit less emphasis on those more traditional coding courses and technical courses than we might have in the past. And we're really leaning into the more human skills, right? And that's why we built this whole Gen AI Essentials path in Q4 of last year, which was communication, prompt engineering, critical thinking, and ethics. It's why we're going to be releasing a storytelling course for business presentations, which is really all about creating a compelling narrative and delivering it in an effective way, because like we've talked about, those skills are so critical. And going back to the concept of like these broader, like systems level skills and understandings, we're actually going to be building out a bunch of analytics engineering content in Q1 and Q2 as well. So this is about understanding how to develop broader pipelines using tools like Snowflake, dbt, Databricks, and tools like that, because understanding that architecture, even at a high level, is something that AI is going to struggle with. And we've got Alice, who teaches a bunch of our Python data science courses, who's going to be leading the charge there. So a lot of people have been excited about that type of content, and we're psyched to be able to produce it first half of next year. So stay tuned.
And one really interesting thing, I think, on the like, how do you learn with AI? I think on the one hand, AI can be a pretty cool tutor. It can help you shortcut some problems. There's this other phenomenon going on. I don't know if folks have heard about this with colleges, universities right now. And I if you don't follow Joe Reese, he's got a great newsletter that he's a guy like Chris and I, has been in data a long time. Another guy that really tells it how it is, not overhyped, not overdoomed. And he was talking about conversations with a lot of professors that he's been having lately. And one of the professors said, this was the first semester, this past fall 2025 semester, where in the past, some students had been using AI and that was clear. And he said this was the first semester where it was clear that almost all the students were using AI for almost everything. And that's bad news. And he explained why that's bad news, because they solved these problems and were able to complete the assignments. But then when given an oral exam, didn't even understand the concepts at all. So I have always said the best way to learn this stuff is watch some experts like Chris or I talk about a concept that you want to learn, like Excel, SQL, Power BI, data structures, all that. But then immediately try to get your own hands dirty and try to solve a real problem, because that's how you get the information to stick. You know, watching us do videos, if you don't do the part where you work on problems, you won't remember what Chris and I taught you. And you definitely won't remember the thing that AI wrote to you when you prompted it, right? So like get your hands dirty. It is so unbelievably critical. And Chris talked about guided projects, but it's also how our courses are built, where we do some lectures and then we say, hey, try and work on this problem yourself. Do not skip that part and just look at our solution to the problem. Struggle through it yourself, because I think that will always be the most important. This is an interesting one from Rohan. Does the combination of analytics and engineering is that the new trend in the industry? And if AI is able to handle all the BI work, do we need to shift our focus more on AI in data engineering? What do you think about that, Chris? Like, should people be trying to think about themselves as a hybrid approach between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been kind of naturally moving towards this blurring of lines between like traditional data engineering roles and data analyst and BI and data science roles. And that's kind of where this like relatively new label of analytics engineer came about, which is like, think of it as someone who can architect a system of data sources and build pipelines to process and move that data from place to place, but also be close enough to the business that they can develop the system that gets the data in the format that they need. And then they can also play the role of transforming that data into insight that drives business decisions. And so like, I think there will still be like full-time data engineers, but there'll be more people kind of playing this fluid role, especially now that like the technical skills aren't as big of a barrier, because we have tools like AI to help accelerate parts of that learning curve and that process. I also just think that data engineering in general is going to just continue to be mission critical, if not more so, because it's the whole garbage in, garbage out argument, right? And an AI model that you're trying to leverage for some sort of analysis or business intelligence, it's only as strong as the underlying data and the structure and quality of that data. And that is what data and analytics engineering is about. It's about getting the data to that state. And so I that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is another one where it's like the tools changed a little bit, but I personally I've never been a data engineer, but I have worked on some data engineering skills so that either I can work better with the data engineers, or before anyone was ever called a data engineer, the back-end engineer or the full stack engineer that was helping, or the database administrator. I think it's always been extremely useful to understand the data structures, and maybe in a pinch, especially if you're at a smaller company, be able to actually do some of the piping and manipulation on your own too. So I think it's honestly a little bit more of the same. But yeah, really good question.
Let's see. Any roles like full stack data analyst? I think that's kind of what the analytics engineer role is turning into, right? It's someone who has like that hardcore technical ability to create pipelines all the way through the more traditional analytics and BI tasks. That's probably my best parallel to what that role would entail.
Yeah, for sure. And the earlier stage company you go for, the more you're going to be the full stack person, right? Because like you go work at Facebook, you're going to plug into a very niche part of their business. They're a huge team handling the data engineering, and maybe you're doing some analysis on a page. That literally might be your whole life, right? Or like Wayfair. I had a friend that was responsible for analysis of one page, one URL, and he was a pretty senior guy. So big companies, you're going to be super niche. Smaller company, like something, maybe they've got 20 employees and you're the first analyst. Their data, let me tell you, they might tell you they have good data that you can work with. They don't. And you're going to have to set a lot of it up. And it's really fun. If you can get those roles, that can be really fun. If that seems exciting to you, if that seems scary to you, maybe go to the big company first, learn a little bit, wait for your second role or down the road to be that. But if you're looking for that, it can be really fun. Chris, amazing stuff here. Folks in the audience, great comments, great questions. You guys rock.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.